Hi, I'm Kyle.
I'm Josh.
This is Two Guys, One Car.
Welcome to our car.
Dude, it starts with Two Guys, One Car. That's the name. It should start
It's
with
welcome
the
to our car.
name. No, but it has to start with Two Guys, One Car because that's the name of the thing.
Just get in the back seat.
Ride along with us.
Welcome to the podcast that is all about living. I'm co-host Josh, and today we are blessed to be joined by Jasper Gotterson and Sean Stuart. Jasper and Sean are two of four mates that decided to embark on something bigger than themselves. They called their project Mates v States and set out to run 80 marathons in 80 days, starting from the southernmost point in Florida and finishing at the Canadian border. After 78 days, they decided they wanted to finish the 80 marathons in just 79 days. So they laced up and ran a double marathon to finish the 3,376 kilometer journey. This was all in the name of raising funds and awareness for Cancer Council. The boys ended up raising over $215,000. Kyle and I are blessed to have been able to have a chat with Jasper and Sean. At the time of this recording, they were in an intensive Spanish boot camp in Guatemala, but very kindly agreed to jump on Zoom and have a chat with us. We cover the run, and we personally gained a lot of insight into what the experience was really like for them. We learned just what kind of mentality it takes to complete something as wild as this, and how having your three best mates by your side makes the impossible seem possible. Later in the conversation, we talk about their current travel plans as they are taking the year to solo travel and experience more of what life has to offer. This conversation was one of my favorites today. Jasper and Sean repeatedly say they are not special by any means. Anyone can achieve what they achieved if you break it down into bite-sized pieces. My question to you is, what's a goal you're afraid to go for? Being over Zoom, Jasper and Sean's audio isn't the best and does lag at times due to the internet connection. However, all in all, I hope you're able to enjoy this conversation and, more importantly, take something from it that helps you to live a life more full. Join us in this week's challenge, and if you feel led to donate to the boys' cause, you can do so at the link below. Over to Jasper and Sean. Yeah, I guess we'll just kick off, seeing that we've only got an hour. I guess just give us the overview and the concept of everything you guys did.
Sure. I'll have this start with, and then I'll kick it off to God. Just also would like to give a massive shout out to the boys, Max and Rory, who aren't here with us. But everything that we say, they've been in the trenches for all of it, and we did it as a team. So massive shout out to them. To wind the journey back to when it first began, and there's been innumerable like attempts to try and figure out when the idea first was born. And I think that the fact that we can't give one answer just shows that there was no single point. But I think each one of us were friends and were drawn to each other as well, just because we were kind of always looking for more out of the rite of passage. And when you kind of go from that period of going from school to university, I think for a lot of people, there's a big moment where you think, like, is there more than just catching the train to university and summarizing my notes to life? And so that feeling manifested itself in us all searching for something, and we kind of just converged on a really out there physical challenge to push ourselves. And I'll let Gotto take that and run with it.
Yeah. Wow. You set me up well there. Yeah, the rite of passage thing's massive. I think also more basic and less interesting reason was we all had to elaborate travel plans for our time throughout uni, which were vetoed due to COVID. So there was also that yearning to sort of get out there, see the world, build a bit of an experience bank. And I hate myself for doing this, but to quote David Goggins so early in the podcast, sort of like build that cookie jar of experience that you can sort of reach into.
Just interjection. The worst thing here is that I once brought David Goggins up on like an interview, and Jasper sprayed me for like the rest of the interview, and he's now done it himself. So there you go.
Myself
4 minutes in.
Anyway.
Yeah.
His cookie jar concept is awesome. I think
no, it is.
doing something meaningful, building a bit of a bank of experience to be able to draw from as you go through like the less fun years of corporate life, namely like the beginning ones, it's quite useful. So I think we all wanted to do that as well. And it's sort of all amalgamated together with that rite of passage thing that Sean was talking about, a desire to sort of give back to a lot of kindness and privilege that we had experienced throughout our lives, as well as building up experiences and getting to see the world.
It's probably worth also mentioning for your viewers who are hearing two guys speak very abstractly and metaphorically what we actually did. So just to give you like a super kind of like the blurb of what we did, the challenge which we set ourselves was to run the entire east coast of America. So we started from the bottom of Key West, Florida, and then we went up all the way to the Canadian border. So we set ourselves the goal of 80 marathons in 80 days. Very cheekishly, we did it in 79 days. We finished with a double marathon at the end, which was a great way to go out. And
Disgusting.
Everyone, yeah, it was filthy. And each member was running their own marathon every day. A question which we get a lot was about like how that worked, because we didn't have a support crew. And so how it worked in practice was we would run 21 Ks in one direction and we'd run back to the car essentially and then leapfrog the distance in the car. So it was like a checkpoint essentially each time. So that's kind of, if that helps contextualize everything with your viewers, that's kind of what we've been spending the last 3 months doing.
Yeah, with obviously like I think one of the biggest things for you guys was the fact that you had, well, like as an onlooker, I think the fact that you guys had no support crew, that was just like, that was fucking wild. When I found out you guys were just doing it off your own back, I was just like, what? That's incredible. So maybe you guys could dive into some challenges you guys faced, like without having a support crew. Like what were some things that arose?
We spoke about this a fair bit on the run actually, and perhaps contrary to that suggestion, I think that having no support crew was one of our biggest strong points, because I think having people in your immediate circle on a challenge like that who aren't going through the exact experience that you are and the difficulties gives you a kind of out to complain to them. So like, oh, they're not doing what I'm doing in this immediate time. I'm feeling down at the moment. I'm feeling moody at the moment. I'm just going to like leech onto them and complain to them because they're there to, whereas for us who are all doing the same thing, if I went to complain to Sean about something trivial or the way that I'm feeling, he's like, mate, we're going through the exact same thing. Like, I don't have time. Like, there's no point. We'll focus on the positives as opposed to the negatives. Whereas I think in a support crew, you can sort of, and not to say that this is what happened in any other situations, but I can understand you might get sort of like a main character syndrome thing where everyone's there supporting you and the run becomes a very like you versus the world and people supporting you to this challenge. And then you can complain because you feel entitled to complain because it's you. Whereas in our 4, it was just like, get the job done, focus on being positive. When someone else is feeling down, boost them back up as opposed to like laboring their complaining, I think.
And something which is also worth really talking about from the support crew side is, so when we started the challenge, we did not expect to stay with a single family. We thought it was going to be like back-to-back motels the entire time, and it could not have been further from the truth. In reality, we stayed, of the 80 days we were there, we stayed with a family, an American family, for 40 days. And so I think that's really important, worth highlighting, because we stayed with so many different types of people who would, without knowing us, 99% of the time, would invite these 4 grown stinky dudes into their house, make meals, like cook for us, just go above and beyond. And so while what everything Jasper said is 100% true, it did feel like at times we had a whole network of people supporting us. And to be honest, I think aside from the running, that staying with the families was the most memorable thing for us. Like, we stayed with, oh my Lord, like we stayed with Republicans, Democrats, we stayed with like CEOs of billion-dollar companies, we stayed with single mom nurses, we stayed with every single type of person you can imagine. We stayed with
share houses, like every.
We stayed in share houses.
So sick.
We stayed on college campuses in like disgusting conditions. We stayed in mansions and we stayed in apartments. We literally saw everything.
Everywhere.
So that was the most memorable part of the trip for all of us. And so I think while we didn't have a support crew, we were supported by a lot of
massively.
people.
And what was it like, Jasper? You said for you guys to be able to like look to your mates and know that you guys are going through the exact same thing. What was that element of it like? Because obviously, like what you guys were doing is monumental, and tackling that journey by yourself could be a very it would just be a completely different experience. But I do feel that along the way, whilst you guys were raising money for Cancer Council and there was like a lot of outward notion with what you were doing, I think to finish what you guys did, there had to be like a real strong intrinsic motivation for you guys. So what was that sort of relationship like, knowing you're kind of all out there for yourselves, but you're also all striving towards this bigger goal?
That for me, that was the only element of the element of the challenge, not the only, but the element of the challenge. I think a lesson that I've taken out of this, and I'll probably talk forever on it, is I personally don't think that I could have done the challenge alone. I think I got the challenge done because of the group I was with, and that speaks a lot to the idea of mateship and community, and the idea that when in a community of like unified ideas and like a strong accountability bond, you can just achieve limitless things as opposed to when you're on your own. And I think having that group of boys sharing the motivation, sharing the values, and creating this extremely strong net of accountability where you're accountable to each other at all times. So if someone's lagging per se at a particular task, someone will just without words step in and lift on that day, and then that reverses on other days when other one's not feeling well. And that, it was incredible to watch the community between us, which already existed, get so much stronger.
And
I speak to myself when I say that's what got me to the end of the challenge. Absolutely.
And how did that play out where I was following your guys' Instagram and every day you'd post like the Strava, and some days there'd be someone that ran, I don't know, like 30, 40 minutes behind, if not longer. So what was that sort of like in real time where, you know, you make that decision or that pacing's just a bit quicker for the other three and that guy lags behind?
We really changed it the whole way. Like towards the end, we really ran as a group the whole time, but there was a period in the middle, and at the start we ran as a group as well. I mean, there was a period in the middle for like probably 30 days, I would say, where we were a bit more variable with how we'd run. We'd usually run in twos. So like you usually, if like you were the strong runner that day, you'd run with another person at the front. And if you're the weaker, you'd run with them. So you generally would try and stay as a two so that someone kind of was always had a person with them. But yeah, it's just to kind of double click on the question, are you kind of talking about like our motivation when we were out there and everyone was in different places, or?
Yeah, just sort of what was that group dynamic like, you know, leaving one guy behind, not leaving him behind, but just continuing on and, you know, knowing that he's probably in a bad state or he's probably doing it pretty rough, but you guys are also in the trenches.
I think when you stay with people for the amount of time that we did, you kind of become like an expert at reading how they feel that day. And so if someone was like, let's say, because there was moments which were really low, I'm sure you saw following the journey where like people had really bad injuries, and so when people were in those types of places, I don't think we wouldn't really leave them behind. We'd run, someone would run with them, or we'd run as a group. But when like everyone was kind of just like, it was honestly like at one point it was just like a job. It's like, okay, I've got to clock into my job. Like I can't be fucked to talk to like the boys today. I just want to kind of put some music on and just like run myself. And when we're in those mindsets, we'd kind of all just split up and do it ourselves. But I think when you could tell that your friend was in a bit of a pain cave, we would always support them and be with them.
The days that we split up for me took so much longer. Like I felt like I was out there for 12 hours, whereas when there was like synthesis and everyone was chatting and conversing, my God, some of those runs just flew past. You blink and it's over.
But sometimes you just don't have the mental energy to do that. Like that's the thing. Like I guess the question, why wouldn't you run together every time and just talk and joke? Because sometimes you're really tired and it's literally just like, the only thing that's going to get me through this is listening to Pop Smoke on repeat and just not talking. So.
I don't say that, but
It's, a question that I'm just been like thinking about is, obviously you guys were like just burning through some fucking crazy calories. Like what are some of the best feeds that you guys had like along the whole journey?
There's certainly one very easy answer to that question. Chocolate milk is a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Like as Sean was saying, There's been countless medical reports written about the power of chocolate milk.
I get all the shit for this.
Yeah.
Just go to. Like, it's such a good excuse. We just smashed so many milkshakes. And being in America, man, that job's so much easier. That country can pack calories into every meal. It's absurd.
We would destroy food on the run. So we like the go-to at the start was like Pop-Tarts. And we had this thing which we called roof milk, which was like this milk, which was like apparently elastic, stored in the car in Florida when there was a heat wave, and it would taste like pure shit. But like the boys would still just like run and be like, "Can I have my roof milk for the day?" And you'd like have a few, have you like Pop-Tart, and like there was also a run where we were running, and I was into Philadelphia, and so the boys were like, "Oh, like for the halfway spot, we're like, okay, like we're gonna pump Philly cheesesteaks." And so like all the boys had these huge Philly cheesesteaks, and then we like get up to go back and run, and like all the waitresses are just like completely wigged out that we're going back to run after that. And that was like every huge meal back on the road.
That's so good. That's so good.
It's a great question because fuck, we probably tried every single fast food restaurant in America. Like we'd have like a real time leaderboard we could have given you.
It was kind of like Size Me, except we were actually working it off during the day.
Yeah. You guys look pretty thin, actually. Did you guys lose weight over the entire course of the run?
Personally, about 8 kilos for me. Just like shedding my upper body, really.
Yeah, like probably 9 kilos in total over like the last bit. But like seriously, we went to the gym for the first time and did upper body, and it was just demoralizing. It was almost depressing. Couldn't even bench like a bench when I was like 14. It was pretty sad.
Dang. And have you guys run since? Like after the run, did you get medically checked out? Do you have any like long-term injuries or anything you're dealing with at the moment? Because I think that's something people tend to forget about, where they follow the run online and then the run finishes and it's this big hurrah, and then we all like go back to our lives, but you guys are left dealing with the aftermath.
We haven't done any proper, like we've done like 1 or 2K runs every now and then, like small ones, and like hikes and things like that. We've been gymming like and doing leg strength. Jasper talked about the other day when he was in the gym, like leg shaking and like different things like that.
Yeah, I just tried to jump under the squat bar, and I think there was something stupid like 40 kilos on there, and I just burnt out and had to go to like the cardio room and just do body weight squat. It was a shocker. But
I'm doing a HIIT workout.
His legs were shaking like after 40 kilos, and I was like shaking, and I was like worried he was going to collapse.
Wow.
I think I converted that every single fast twitch muscle fiber in my body into these like super boring slow twitch. I can just like move really slowly for a long time, but in terms of doing anything athletic or explosive, I just fail. So it's gonna be a long pathway back.
Yeah, like mentally, the thing that was hard was like adjusting to like using our brain, as stupid as that sounds, but like the brain uses so much glycogen for like running. It takes a lot of it away from the brain, and so like we were constantly commenting in the run and being like, holy shit guys, like we're getting dumber, like we're actually getting so stupid.
Yeah, when Rory would say the same thing for the 5th time, you're like, oh my gosh, my dude.
And so like once we finished brain fog was definitely very real. Like we had it for a few days, like just these serious headaches. And then after that, it was a gradual process. Like using our brain took a lot of energy and it was difficult to do. But thankfully, I'd say now, like fingers crossed, we're more or less back to normal, just the strength of like little teenage boys.
Sean's brain's still a little off.
All right, 40K spot,
yeah, I think we're also lucky in terms of like physical rehab and like running it down. We finished the run in New York, and due to our complete lack of acquaintance with the subway system, we ended up just walking everywhere. So we clocked up some miles.
It was like a deload just with no thought into deloading.
Yeah.
But we were doing like 10, 15 Ks of walking every day, probably for that like 5 days. Really helpful.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. And what's it like to relay the story and like sort of relive the moments, knowing it'll never be as special, like retelling the story, and you can never fully get across what it was, but like what are sort of those moments that you guys hold on to that made it so special for you?
I mean, the most special moment, and it'd be good to chat about, and then we can dive into some of the niche ones maybe, but the moment which was the last probably 10 kilometers of our last run. And so at that point, we'd done 70 kilometers. We were pretty exhausted, and we were coming in and we were just like having a very wholesome chat about, like, it was very like, yeah, it was a very special kind of chat coming in. And then we decided for the last kilometer, we would make that our fastest of the whole day. And so 1K and we break into a sprint, like a proper sprint. And like
some guy messages us on our Instagram. I'll shout him out. Pretty B, I believe his name was. He said, "Look, guys, I'll donate. I don't make much money, but I'll donate $100 if you guys make your 84th kilometer the fastest."
And so we were like, okay,
like, right, mate.
We're like, that's pretty torturous, but okay, like, we'll do it. Because so we hit the last K, we start sprinting, and we don't really know where the Canadian border is, and so we're just sprinting, and then like surreal moment, like the sun is setting, the sky is pink, this kind of Canadian mountains distance, and then we just come across this fucking huge hill. And we're like, oh my God, of course the last is up a like genuine Mount Everest hill. And so we just like, no one says anything to each other. Like, no one says maybe we should slow down. No one complains. In fact, we start running faster up the hill. And so like, we're all like panting, like the first time in the run, like genuinely like out of breath, like Stitch.
Yeah.
And then we come to the top of the hill, and we just look down and you can see all the flags and all the traffic cones marking the border.
Fuck yes.
And the boys got pretty emotional. Maybe we were crying, or maybe it was raining, but yeah, the water was flowing for some reason, and then we all kind of hugged each other at the finish line. That was the most special moment for sure.
Fuck. So what was that K split?
Yeah.
Oh,
30?
420, but like it sounds very slow. Like,
No.
For the,
You guys run like Ks.
just like up a hill. Like it was just, it was demonic.
Wow. That's what a moment. Like it actually couldn't get any better to end the journey off with that moment.
Yeah, it was awesome.
The only thing which could have been better is the champagne and the confetti wasn't ready when we were there. So it's like, which was, that was like an insider scoop, but other than that, it was magical.
Yeah.
Do you want to think which one for them, which we like really special moment?
There's just so many.
Yeah, booting up all the chalky milk.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, I really enjoyed our car trips. We each had like very designated seats in the car. I don't know why, and I'm very lucky, but I copped the front seat. Sean and
you don't know why, because you called shotgun on the first day.
Yeah.
Doesn't know why.
And we just had some extremely special conversations in that car. Obviously, after you run and you all get into the car, and we had like songs that we would like sing. I guess it sounds weird, but like sing in the car and
rap.
Yeah, a lot of rap. We dabbled with like strange freestyle rap attempts from all of us. I don't know. I think the car,
yeah.
I just think the car trips were like
he's really dirty. He's really showing dirty laundry at the moment. Damn, that one stays in the car.
I mean, it's impossible. It's impossible not to talk about the small conversations you had with every different person on the homestays, and a lot of the times you would slowly find out over the course of your time in their house that they actually had a very special connection with the cause of their own, which was deeply personal to them, and that had kind of catalyzed them reaching out to us and wanting to have us in their home. And often over dinner, when they talk about their connection to the story, it's just an incredibly consolidating moment where you feel so much stronger in what you're doing, and you become unified again with the cause. I mean, it's easy when you're out there as a group of four running through rural Georgia to forget what you're doing and why you're doing it, and the strength that comes from that. And to have someone random bring you into their home and let you in on their own personal experiences, man, that was incredibly special at the time.
Just to elaborate on that, like I think it was in some of the write-ups, but we didn't really capture the extent of it. It's just when we were running or when we were going to a gas station, someone coming up to us and just crying and saying, I saw you guys on the news, like my wife's just been diagnosed with cancer. Here's $20 towards a cause. And those moments were so common and the stories were so frequent that it was just like running through a country and threading all these people's personal stories with something which meant a lot to us as well. And I mean, that was super memorable, and there were so many of those moments as well.
Countless.
Wow, that's incredible. I feel like for you guys now that you've done such a big feat, and it's been like obviously it hasn't been that long, but have you guys had any thoughts of like, what are we gonna do next, or are you still on just like fuck all that?
It's funny you say that. Like, we talk so much on the run. We like one of the biggest things which we would do is like would you rathers. And there was so would you rathers. Like, would you rather do 80 marathons again in 80 days or X?
Yeah.
And I think you have to pay us a lot of money to do it again.
Yeah. So that was like the common denominator of the would you rathers, just like the 80 marathons, because you're in it. So you know that pain, and you're just like, could something be worse than this?
Yeah, that's the metric. Like, how much worse did this get?
I was going to say, like,
would you rather's got rogue though. I'm not going to lie. Like, it didn't have any bearing on running, and it was just like,
I've written a book on just would you rather's. But what I was going to say is, like, for us, I think what probably distinguishes us from a lot of the other people who do this type of thing is that we're not really endurance athletes, and we don't really have ambition of being endurance athletes. It was just, I think which we love is, can we as a group push ourselves to do something for a positive cause? And I think going forward, we've kind of come to the idea of maybe like every year, the four of us or maybe extra people, just pick one challenge that year, and it can be like a day. It could be like 2 days, and you build towards that. And every year you do something like that. But I think I'm speaking on behalf of us that we'll never do a 3-month challenge again.
Yeah.
It's just, holy shit, it's just something else. And I think when we do our next challenge, it'll be like maybe like 100-kilometer paddleboard in a day, or something along those lines. And everyone in the group has different ambitions of what they want to do with their life. But I think we'll all forever be kind of united by that challenge once a year that we always do, and try and push ourselves.
That's cool.
Yeah, I agree.
What did you guys learn about yourselves during the experience? Obviously you learned heaps, but what were some of the key things that you think you learned about yourself? Because as you stated, like, there is this desire to push yourself and learn more about yourself through these challenges.
It sounds really basic, so I'll try and just say it, but there's this realization that everything that happens to you, particularly on a run where there's a lot of things going on every day, some things are negative, some things are positive, is you have this like split second, like literally millisecond of time to react to a situation in like the direction of positive or negative. And once you react negatively to a situation, which can sometimes be so easy to do, it's almost impossible to correct it back to the positive reaction. And so the mind being like a muscle that you have to progressively strengthen to just get it to keep ticking to the positive side, so that you impulsively react positively to every situation, is just something that I'm trying and I've been trying to learn to do. And the run really helped me with that. Just to understand that I need to just keep ticking to the positives. Every time something happens, you miss an airplane, positive. You wake up with shitty knee pain, positive. Like, how can I flip everything? And you come to this overall realization, probably the only thing you own in this life is that split second of judgment. And if you're able to master it and practice it, and I'm speaking from no position of mastering it at all, I'm still at the very beginning, but I'm inspired to continue to practice to master that judgment and keep flicking it to the positive side, because it's just so powerful. I feel like the times, and in your life, if something bad happens and you're able to get on top of it early, it's so powerful. Like, you can overcome so many things.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That was, just as an aside, that was kind of the one rule which we had as a group when we first started. We literally just said there's one rule: just be positive at all times. And so
we had like a vernacular, like positivity grenades and like, positivity nukes.
I know it sounds like we have that like ridiculously positive teacher, and you're like, okay, like chill. But it was actually genuinely the most useful tool that we had, was just always being positive. as a different one to Jasper, I think the biggest life lesson for me, which has definitely already transferred in my life today, is about just like the idea of an anchoring bias. I mean, when we told people that we were going to do 80 marathons in 80 days, like they were just like, yeah, okay, like you're going to be in a wheelchair
Like next
for
joke.
100 days. Like, okay, like move on to the next thing. Yeah, and like we don't want to play up this like negativity of like, oh, everyone doubted us. Like, not at all. Like, fair enough that they doubted us. Completely understand.
So fair.
Like, so fair. We completely understand. But I think the lesson which we've all learned is like through this process of taking on a really fucking hard goal and actually being able to complete it. And we mentioned this in the post. It's not because like Jasper, Rory, Max, and I are built different at all. It's not because we're great athletes. Like anyone who's known me in my life could tell you I was like a bottom tier athlete, like a fledgling cricketer who I'm last in cross country and drown in the pool. I think it's just because we've learned that if you kind of like harness a big ambition and then you work together as a team and hold each other accountable and consistently work towards it, you can literally take on anything. And so to tie back to the first point of the anchoring bias, I think as humans, we really anchor to what we think our limitations are. So like a marathon is almost this universal currency of, oh, wow, that's hard. 80 of them would be 80 times as hard. And I think that anchoring bias is just so wrong. Like you guys could do what we did if you had the consistency and the training. But the only barrier is probably the fact that you're anchoring to what you think the limitations of yourselves are, because that's what everyone does. And so to give you kind of like an idea of how that just fully changed my mind of how I think about ambition and what I want to do in my life, it's like, I guess like a lot of the time you're told like, oh, don't start a business or don't start a company when you're young because you've got so much to learn and like you're not ready yet and maybe you wait 10, 15 years. But I think this whole thing has just raised our collective ambition levels. And we're like, okay, we know how to go about this, set the goal, get a great group of people and just methodically break it down and just show up every day. And you can do something which most people think is impossible, but ironically they could do as well.
That's a beautiful lesson that you guys were able to learn for yourselves throughout that process. And I think so many people can overlook, you know, those like crazy athletic feats and just think like it takes this real like meathead, someone that just, you know, gets it done. But there is so much to be learned through hardship, and especially when you're putting yourself through the hardship. And the fact that you guys were able to have like as many laughs as you did along the way, but really learn a lot about yourselves, I think that's so beautiful.
And just as like a super small point on that, what you're saying there is like genuinely we were running sometimes and we'd start at like 4 a.m. sometimes and we'd see a group of workers going to work in the field and we'd run the whole day. They'd still be there, like back-breaking work, like picking things like, and then we'd get dinner, then we'd drive to the next checkpoint and they would still be in the field. And we were like, holy shit, like what they're doing, way harder than what we're doing. Like they show up every day and do it. They do it for longer. It's more intense, and they have no recognition. They're not raising money. Like they don't get to go on podcasts and talk about their experience. Like that's just their life. And me and Jasper are currently in Guatemala, just like enjoying ourselves now. And I bet you they're still picking. And so I don't mean to bring it up as it's more just to show like perspective is really important in these things. Like someone always has it harder than you, and if you can really think about that, then it makes everything a lot easier.
And that's something that I grappled with a lot on the run, and it's still not formed in my mind. So by talking about it on the podcast, I'm probably going to bottle it entirely, but I'll give it a crack. To use the example of the people in the field, like what they were doing is an involuntary. What they're doing is involuntary. They're working most likely, right? Like to put food on the table, to spend money. People who like the people who we ran for, the people who are suffering with cancer, that's suffering and that's involuntary. And I took issue a lot in the idea and the branding that like we're out there suffering, because suffering for me didn't necessarily fit what we were doing, which is a highly intentional, voluntary use of our time to push ourselves and grow and experience some degree of hardship. But I think a lot of these challenges, like, I love suffering and I just want to suffer and I want to grow through suffering. And I think that a lot of the time, and it's very personal reflection on the run, that suffering element is misplaced, because it's sort of laminates together with this involuntary state of suffering that so many people are going through and who are experiencing intense hardship. Like the people we ran for, people in the street that we ran past who are homeless, the workers who are going out at 4 a.m. to work in a field. And I think it was really important for me to distinguish our experience, which was an experience of voluntariness and intention, to people who don't have that choice and who are suffering genuinely. And creating a clear barrier in my head between that and people who brand these sort of challenges through the lens of, I just want to suffer as much as possible. I am trying to just create distance between what we did and those experiences of others who don't have the choice. And I don't know if that necessarily makes sense. It's still forming in my head, but
No,
I think
it makes total sense.
very important part of what we did.
Yeah, it makes total sense. That's interesting. That would be really tough to be like thinking about along the way, because I'm sure like obviously you guys did a bunch of interviews like along the way too, and people are obviously being like, oh, congratulations, like keep going, you're doing really well. And like for you guys to be wrestling with that along the journey would be quite tough. What sort of people did you guys run with? Like did anyone run along with you? Like run a couple of the marathons?
Yeah, we had a lot of people run with us actually, ranging from like complete randoms that we would meet. Some of our hosts would run with us. Family members would, like my cousin ran with us, and the famous Jasper's Tinder date came and ran with me for a few days as well.
So it's kind of alluding to, I wanted you guys to bring that up.
I'll stop the alarm. I'll stop the stopwatch. Short go-to story. It's reached the time. Yeah, no, it was.
I'll save you the pain. Jasper hates talking about it, but that's all good. The story was basically, for you guys viewers who haven't seen it before, was this girl was on spring break and she matched with Jasper on Tinder and got talking and was like, oh, like, do you want to go on a date? And he's like, no, like I'm running the country. And so she's like, no, I'll come with. And we were like, oh, are you sure? Like there's a tornado warning. It's like 2 hours away from where you are. It's like a marathon. And she's like, yep, rocks up, crushes the marathon, like lovely girl. And then
crushes it to the point where she would like run ahead to talk to one person, go back to talk to the other person, be running like a long time.
She was killing it. And then
smashed it.
And then she, like probably 40 days later, we were in Washington. She's from Florida. Oh, and her mum was also a physio. And so like we didn't have a physio in America. And so pure like coincidence, we now had like a physio, and she was a physio, training to be a physio. So they were being like amazing with like tape and like how to like deal with all our injuries. So it was just like the best Tinder date for all of us ever. And she was a lovely girl and super helpful. And then she actually flew to Washington and tried to run 3 marathons with us
consecutively.
She got 2 out, and it was a heroic effort. Like she was in a pain cave. Like on the 3rd day, she was like,
she did about half on the 3rd.
Yeah, she was digging like so deep. And like she literally went to the point of failure, which I think was just like, we were all like godsmacked by. We're like, this girl's just like come here and just given it like the best effort of all time. And so she was lovely, and Jasper's now meeting up with her in Europe, aren't you, Jasper?
She was inspired to do a physical challenge, like what we did. So she booked this big trek. It's called the TMB, Tour de Mont Blanc. It's like Italy, Switzerland, France, up in the Alps. And she initially had plans to do it with one of her good mates whose work didn't let her get the leave. And therefore her trip was then up in the air because she needed to do it with somebody. She didn't want to do it alone. And she asked if I would come with it. Then I thought that, yeah, absolutely. It sounds like,
fuck, that's awesome.
That's a good story she spun, hey, like making up about her friend not being able to make it.
100% did. I thought the exact same thing. Oh, my mysterious friend has disappeared.
oh God.
No, that's honestly so sick. I'm keen to talk about like other stuff, because I don't want to like solely relate you guys to this. Like you're obviously much more than those 80 days. Right now your minds aren't even on those 80 days. You're learning Spanish and doing what you guys are doing. So what are you guys up to now, and what are the plans now? Because you did initially say at the start there were massive travel plans for you all.
Yeah, so currently we're in Guatemala in a city called Chiela, which there's no tourists here. It's like very, very different to what you would expect. There's like goats on the street, people in like the traditional Mayan outfits just at the market selling fruit. It's a really cool city. And so we're at an intensive Spanish boot camp, and we have been for the last 3 weeks. So we kind of just like not much time off, just went straight into this. A big goal of ours was to learn Spanish this year. And so we just have kind of, I guess because we've like had this huge goal mindset for so long, it's almost like a coping mechanism just to like shift the spotlight onto the next thing, which is probably unhealthy, but we can unpack that in the next podcast. And so we're learning Spanish. It's really intense. Like it's about 7 or 8 hours a day of like just speaking in Spanish and one-on-one. And so Josh and I came in Euro Spanish with our brains like really muddled from the run, and just got destroyed. Like we were saying to each other on the first and second day, we're like, dude, I think this is harder than the run at points because our brains are just destroyed. And then the other 2 boys are not learning Spanish, which is probably a smart move, and they're just traveling around South America
with their girlfriends.
Everyone had, so the 3 of us are taking a year off, maybe a bit longer, just to do a few things we've always wanted to do. And then Rory's going back to work in the opal mines in a few months' time.
Weeks now.
A few weeks, maybe, yeah.
Jeez.
That's cool. So are you guys planning to go separately?
Separately, yeah. So in 3 days, we split up for the first time.
No. Goodness.
Yeah.
It's only taken 5 months.
I'm heading over to visit some family briefly in Europe. And then I'll do that trek, and I'm going to head back over here towards the end of the year. And I'm hoping that my Spanish is at a proficiency that I can teach at a school in Colombia, do some service up there for a few months, 3 months before heading back in and sort of diving into the workforce. Comes back to building the experience bank, just trying to sort of like collect as rich of an experience as I can over here.
And then on my front, a big goal for me has always, like a passion of mine has always been writing. And so I've written quite a lot over the years, but I've never wrestled with a fiction novel. And so that's the current focus after I've learned Spanish for a bit, is going to be to try and write like a fiction book. And so I've kind of set myself any amount of time. The only limitation is my dwindling bank account. And so I'll just focus on writing this book, maybe in Argentina, Colombia for a bit. And then once that's finished, like it doesn't have to sell any copies, but once it's something which I can be proud of and myself and enjoy it, I'll head back to society and see what we do there.
Rumor on the Guatemalan streets is that this big guy wants to write a romance. Help him become more in touch with his emotional side.
After spending like 3 months with 4 dudes in a car.
Oh, that's so funny. That's awesome. It's cool. What do you guys think it'll be like actually being by yourselves? Like, have you even thought about that?
Sean,
I was pretty scared of it, because yesterday, it's funny you bring it up. Yesterday was the first time that I'd come to terms with Jasper leaving and none of the other boys being here. And I was like, wow, it's going to be another challenge. Like just being by myself in a country where I don't speak the language for a while. And it was pretty scary. But I think, as we're talking about at the start, like once you go about this big challenge, you kind of have the tools and the framework for just breaking down all these like small things, like trying to be positive, like realizing you can, many other people have done it, and just like going about it. So it's definitely hard, but I think we're ready.
I unfortunately don't share any of that because I'm going to spend time with my family in Europe. There's no single pipeline for me, so I haven't wrestled with that yet. And I'm terrible by myself, so I can imagine if I ever do have to wrestle with that, it won't be pretty. But hey, I'm safe for a bit longer.
Do you think that's something you want to dive into, like spending time by yourself to get more comfortable with that?
Yeah, it's a bloody good question, and you're probably bang on. I do need to get better being myself. I guess I was taking an unusual tack. I didn't foresee it.
Josh was doing 80 marathons in 8 days by himself now.
Yeah, that's right.
Lock it in, announced.
Yeah, you heard it first.
Yeah, I guess an interesting part about that is that having finished the run, I moved on very quickly because I didn't want to get stuck in the mindset like, oh, my body's like broken and my knees are screwed and oh, the run was so special and I just want to think about it. Right? So I just like pushed aside really quickly and haven't really had the necessary time to decompress and process everything. Yeah, I mean, it almost feels premature talking about it.
I mean, it's probably like, to be honest, it's actually probably a failure of ours, the lack of reflection that we've had. And like, we're usually pretty deep people and think about things a lot. But for some reason, we just literally just shifted gears into something else and haven't really thought about it in enough depth, which we should. So I think that's something which we definitely want to improve on. And maybe in the next few months when we're maybe solo or back together, we can actually really unpack everything.
Yeah, I think there's probably so much there to unpack. It probably seems like a challenge that will go on for the rest of your lives, and I'm sure you'll always like pull back from lessons you learn or memories you had along that journey. And I think that's the cool thing, and something Jasper's been speaking about for the pod is just gaining experience in life, and that's exactly what you guys did, and that's what you guys are doing, which I think is one of the best things you can do, rather than just going like that path that most people walk.
And yeah, it's like exactly right. And it's hard for us to go back to something like a job in Sydney where it's kind of not fulfilling, because we've just tasted such a fulfilling experience. Like, I feel like we can probably all relate, like doing something really hard as a group with like a purpose greater than yourself. Like what a fucking privilege to do that. Like, I think being able to experience that, it's like, okay, anything less than that is going to be really hard to settle for. And so like, I don't think, not throwing shade at like PwC or EY, but like, I don't think that I could get that level of fulfillment out of life if I had to go somewhere and just be like a cog in a machine and it wasn't like a really tight community working towards something greater. And so like, hopefully I don't get cancelled for that, but it's definitely been like a big takeaway, and something which I think when we come back, we'll really look for something in our lives, whatever it is. Like for Jasper, whether it's being a lawyer, like for Rory being an opal miner, for Max being question mark. I don't know, but and me question mark as well. To be honest, like we'll see.
And how is Spanish going for you guys now? Given it's been, what did you say, 3 weeks?
Well, we were in a protest 2 days ago randomly. We're in school, and then there was a protest on the street, and they just like, our teacher was on the protest, and she's just like, "Oh, come down." And so we start protesting with them about like cleaning the streets of rubbish or something. And then the Guatemalan news station comes out, and like they obviously never really see like gringos in this part of town, so they asked like to interview us. And so we're just like on TV with like the only Spanish we know, just yelling in the protest. It's so
And that's what you guys are more proud of.
Yeah, it's difficult. We're both staying separately as well in houses with families. My family's like 20 people and none of them speak a lick of English. So you go home and 8 hours of Spanish, separate, not together, to a family. And the only way you can communicate about like if you want to eat dinner or what you did that day, or if you've got a hole in your roof and it's leaking, is through like these fractured, basic, elementary Spanish.
I mean, this is probably our longest English conversation we've had, hence we're probably so dusty.
No, it was actually, I was thinking you guys speak so well.
Oh, thank you.
We joked a lot because because we've been speaking so much Spanish and just in like simple present tense, like I want pizza. When me and Jasper talk to each other, we have just started speaking using like the biggest words, and we're like, dude, what is happening to us? It's like our way of like reclaiming our identities. Like we can speak English properly.
Like our metamorphosis, like Socratic, like these philosophical
like we just have started speaking in like the weirdest way to each other. Like maybe we'll go back normally soon, but I don't know.
Another emerging goal, which would be remiss of me not to bring up, is that we've been doing a lot of salsa. There's like a salsa school, and like to use this platform stupidly to promote dumping, learn salsa. It is unbelievable. It's
get this guy in one protest, and now he's like, he like can't be.
I'm a salsa activist now.
No. Jasper's had like many rants in Spanish or attempted rants about like the need for Australians to learn salsa. So
no, that's not entirely true. I think there's a lot about Latin American culture that we could learn from, particularly like their family structure, the way they all live in the same house. I think it's just such a healthy way to go about life. That's a completely tangential conversation for a completely different time.
But to contrast it, like it's so wild to have 3 months ago we were living with like American families and now we're living with Guatemalan families, and just to see the differences is just again, it's like it's what Jasper was talking about of like collecting these different experiences. It's almost very addicting to just go to the next place and like embed yourself there and just see how all these different cultures kind of go about life. It's yeah, very memorable.
Sean used to say on the run, it was clever. When we'd go to like a really cool place, he would say, "Oh, I'm so glad that my subconscious has this image now. I feel like it will help me understand so many things in the future, just having this in my subconscious." And that goes to the experience, then collecting the experiences. You're like collecting this huge universe of pictures, images, experiences, and people in your subconscious that you'll be able to constantly use in your future to understand situations, process situations, express yourself. And I think it's just such a valuable thing to do. Put yourselves in crazy situations that aren't familiar so that you can enrich the subconscious of your subconscious, and you'll be better for it, I think. I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
That's cool. Is that something you've lived prior to this trip and prior to the run?
I guess the idea for me is just more practical and relevant to writing. Like I always talk about like writing in the imagination, like it's almost like your mind is just populated with clouds, and the more clouds there are, like the more ability you have to draw upon them and make these kind of novel things. And so you don't really have to like digest everything that you see and make sense of it in this like beautiful structure in your mind. But just by having all these like rogue different clouds of experience, it kind of just makes the process of writing a lot easier. But I guess it applies to all of life. I guess it's not just writing.
Massively.
So what?
Oh, no. Sorry, I thought.
Yeah, are you guys like strict? You need to leave in like 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
We can go till
10 past.
Yeah, we can go till 10 past here, which is we've got 10 more.
The Spanish.
See if they want to speak about anything.
Cooking class that we signed up to a long time ago. That's in 10 minutes. So.
Yeah, sick. No, that's good to know.
I was going to say, it was so humbling when we first came. And there was one day where we had Spanish classes, a gym session, salsa, and cooking. And it was like back to back, getting put on the bitcher for things that we're terrible at. Like it was like, it's like salsa, we were like, couldn't move our feet. Spanish, couldn't speak. Gym, 14-year-old boy. Cooking, like butchered it. And it was like, it was just
to
so
return
humbling.
to your homestay and then be like, how was that? And you not understand a thing they say. It's like, just throw me a bone. I need to go to bed.
Yeah. I mean, any like accrued confidence or like stuff from the run was like in that moment just decimated by how we were.
That's so
And
funny.
what's the reasoning behind the salsa? Like, what have you actually found in it that is beautiful?
He's baiting you.
Yeah.
He's like, let's get him on for 40 minutes. We got it.
Yeah. I don't think 10 minutes is long enough. No jokes. Well, we were given a complimentary class by the Spanish school, to do salsa. And we went down there and it's super cheap in Guatemala. And it's like a little group from the people around Cello who meet up on like certain nights to just like socially do it. And there's a really lovely instructor who teaches you. But the tool being that salsa is one of the easiest things you can do. You need two people. You don't even really need music. And you can just like, let me try and form
I'm
myself.
really excited to see where he goes.
Okay, let me just paint a portrait. In your life, that you get like a serious relationship somewhere down the track when that happens. You have like a tough day at work, you get home, you can throw on like a Netflix TV show and just numb your brain and do nothing, sit next to your partner or whatever. Or you can just throw on a song on your phone, get up and salsa dance for 30 minutes. It's active, you get like a great like physical chemistry, you get like a release. It's like spending quality time with your partner. You learn while you're doing it.
I feel like he's selling a sham wow.
Yeah. I'm actually on the payroll of the local salsa school. So if you guys
Yeah, what's that? What does it say on your shirt there?
Yeah, it's just like the logo.
Yeah, Guatemalan salsa.
That's right. Can we have the ad break now? The one that I sent you?
In defense, Jasper, I'll step in to help him out and throw him a bone.
Screw you.
I do see where he's coming from. Like in Australia, I'm sure you boys can testify to just like, it seems like Australian culture is kind of like devoid a bit of music and dancing and like conventional. And I know it's like a weird thing to say, but when you go to like Latin America and there's just such like a rich culture of dancing and music and it's so embedded into like everyday life here, you're like, oh wow, like that would be a really beautiful thing to bring back to Australia. There's so many reasons why. So in defense of Jasper's sales pitch, I think he has a good idea. Plot twist, we're both actually salesmen for the dance.
It's just kind of like a different language. Like you learn a language just when someone else, like if that's your partner, so be it, and you become like progressively more fluent at it, and it becomes more fun the better you get, and the conversation can become more adventurous the better you get at dancing. And I think it's such a great skill to have. Like
no, it's cool how you speak about it not on so much on an individual level, more so like you with the partner and actually like learning that together.
That's the entirety of it. Is that you do it's an activity you can do. They do it in the streets here. They do it at the clubs. They do it.
That's awesome.
And it's just meeting new people on a completely different level that you just can't really. It's different. It's not comparable to just having a conversation with someone, but it's very special nevertheless.
I think sold. I'm sold.
But I can serve
But yeah, no, I think there is so much that we can learn from other cultures around the world, especially given like our Australian culture is just so young, at least like how we live it. And I think for you guys, it's just a matter of like learning those things. And when you come back into this environment, not allowing yourselves to be corrupted by the environment, but keeping whatever it is you want to keep and practicing whatever it is you want to practice, because it happens so quickly. Like you just fall back in and then before you know it, like salsa's a distant memory.
And question for you. I'm conscious of time and your audience, like, but I would love to learn more about your guys' backstories, because I know the podcast is very much branded with taking the path less traveled. If you've talked about it in like other episodes, but would love to hear more about your guys' journey in terms of backstories.
Yeah, have you guys got a question? Like, or you just want to know the general overall?
What inspired the podcast, and like what actions have you done since starting the podcast? Which I don't know. I think that's a good starting point. Is like, what was like, because you take the path that's traveled, which implies that you were on the standard path at one point. So maybe we focus on when you guys stepped off would be interesting.
Yeah. So essentially, it was like 2020. To give it in a short way, it was like, 2020, 2021? 2021.
Yeah.
2021. I was at uni doing economics, which I absolutely love. Like, I love economics. But I think I was like coming to a point where I was just like, damn, man, I don't think I can do, like, I had almost like a realization of like, I don't think I could do this as a career. Like, I can't see myself having a career in economics. And it was almost like the point where I was like, okay, I'm not like, and I would probably never get to this point, but I wasn't too deep, as most people would say, like in it, to be able to like I had like almost a time to make a decision where if I want to keep doing this. And me and Josh have had a really good friendship since we were like 14. We're 23 and 22. And basically he was on a similar path where he was about to become a qualified mechanic. He had other plans, like he didn't want to keep going with that. He almost wanted to travel, but obviously COVID was cool. So yeah, it was pretty much just like I approached Josh, just being like, look, dude, like we both, and we'd done like a lot of stuff together, like in our young 20s. We just have experienced a lot together. And we have a really good friendship, like on a deeper level. I'm sure you guys probably have a similar thing. And I was just like, let's just do something together, man. Like, I don't even know what it is, but let's just do something. So then we just came together. Like, it was like when you couldn't even like go outside here in Australia, like, you know, when you couldn't even be in a car with someone, it was at like that point. And it was like, we were eating, like dinner together. This is another story, which is funny, but I won't tell it now. And we pretty much just like, that night was just like a couple of hours where we just like, what could we do with our time together to try and build something? and we kind of came across the fact that we're both like super curious naturally. And like together we think that like the best way that you can explore curiosity is like conversation. So we're like, well, like podcasting's super available now. Like, let's just start with that and then see where we go from there. So that's pretty much been the last year and a little bit now. And have I missed anything in that? I don't think so.
No, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and then now we're sort of trying to branch out into other sorts of realms, kind of push for more adventure, more experience driven. Like the whole brand is just like we want to preach living rather than existing. So doing that ourselves, number one, and then number two, speaking to people like you guys who are also living rather than existing. And yeah, I think that's a pretty good overview. I think we just have a real desire to do more things that embody actually living rather than just sort of sticking to the mundane.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, like, we're not saying anyone that works in 9 to 5 or whatever is existing, but purely just for us and what we desire to do, like, we didn't feel that was suited. And yeah, here we are, like just over a year and a half later.
Yeah, and that for us, like personally, I know for me, like I know so many people who are like working at 9 to 5, but they have like their passion, their living is embodied through their relationship or their like their family, their friends, their passions outside of their work. Like all those things embody living, but I feel like there is a lot of people who focus too much on other things and don't have that chance to actually live and don't see it enough almost. So I think, yeah, it's super important for like we find a lot of passion in sharing stories like you guys. Like if someone listens to this and goes, oh, I'm gonna like trying to take something on a little bit out of the norm, that embodies living a little bit more than like we'd be doing our job.
Having had a year's worth of conversations and talking to heaps of people, I'm sure plenty of them interesting, more interesting than us. Have you got any plans, adventure plans in the pipeline? Have you got anything on the boil?
Yeah, it's actually a good question. So at the moment, long story short, but we've been having this real conflict with short form content and just asking what value does it add to the world, where long form requires you to be more intentional to like, okay, do I actually want to listen to this podcast for 2 hours? Do I actually want to sit down and watch this movie? Whereas there's not really a conversation in your mind when you're watching a reel or a short. So for us, we want to get into more long form content, long form storytelling. And we have 6 adventures planned over the next 6 months for the back end of the year. And we want to tell 6 stories on those adventures. So yeah, we have a bunch of stuff lined up, which is super exciting.
Watch this space.
Yeah. And before you guys go, we end every podcast with a challenge. So we get the guests to give us a challenge. You guys can do it too, or anyone listening. It doesn't have to be physical. It could be anything related to what you're like going through in life at the moment, and we will try to complete it during the week that the pod is released.
There is only one challenge, and if you don't say it, I'll be disappointed, but go.
I want a 1 minute salsa dance from both of you.
Salsa dance? Did you say salsa?
1 minute salsa
Dude,
dance.
that was my thing. I was like, if you don't say salsa dancing, I'm gonna be pissed.
Like a full routine as well. Like
with a partner that you've never met before until at this point. You have to meet someone this week,
and you have to film like a
1 minute routine.
1 minute routine with them.
Okay. Wait, can they know salsa, or we both have to learn on?
The male has to lead in salsa, so
you won't help you that much if they know it.
You have to
what
show
happens
them
if there's 2 males?
one of these lead.
You can go for it. If they know salsa, all the better. If they don't,
yeah. No, that's awesome.
Sick.
I love that answer.
Great challenge.
It's like running 80 marathons. Dance salsa.
Yeah.
That's right.
Contrast.
Keep it congruent what we've done in the past.
Yeah.
As you can tell, Jasper hates suffering, so hence the salsa challenge.
Yeah. No, that's so.
It's definitely suffering.
That's so awesome. And is there anything you guys want to say before you jump off?
Shoot for the moon. Literally routine and breaking things down into small pieces camouflages even the most overwhelming of tasks. So shoot for the moon and break it down into bite-sized chunks, and I guarantee you'll get it done.
Would plug our donation link, but I think it's been closed now. So in that case, I'll
really?
give equivalent of Jasper's message, which is like a little tool which I use, which always helps me think about life decisions. It's just, what would I think of this when I'm 80? I think it's simple but really helpful, because like if I was like, say I was at Goldman Sachs and I was like looking for promotion, I don't think any of my grandkids would care if I got promoted, but like, would they care if I ran across the country? Would they care if I started a podcast like you guys?
This guy's
like,
got a gripe with big corporates.
Absolutely. And so that's been a really helpful kind of illumination for me in life. Is just like what would I think?
I love that. Fuck.
Yeah, thanks, boys. Some words of
Awesome.
wisdom there.
Fantastic.
And if we sounded like, I hope we didn't sound like departing wisdom sage, because we're like literally just like helpless men in Guatemala with like no skills.
Speaking from no position of authority whatsoever, just like potentially helpful bits and bobs that other people have taught us.
Yeah, no, that's it. You guys are sort of a vessel for obviously like living, like we wanted to almost like portray, and like, what you guys have done and are doing is super awesome. So thank you guys so much for your time.
Yeah, appreciate it. And I can speak for both of us. I think when we say we're massive fans of you guys and what you guys have done. And if you are ever back in Sydney and we're here, we'd love to link up.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely, lads.
Just for the food and salsa, no running. We'll just eat food and dance salsa.
I look forward to 2 minutes worth of quality footage.
By then we expect like a routine. So
right.
Yeah. Boys.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks, fellas. Ciao, amigos. Ciao.